Evening, everyone. Appreciate you being here. I know that this has been an unusual quarter, to say the very least. And because of that, we have some different things, different issues, different problems. But one of the things that remains is the need for us to provide high quality education, and then the need for students to receive that high quality education. So, um, a lot of what I'll share with you this evening are basic fundamentals to help support you, and which are the same ones that I would share with you if we had been in person. But along the line, we'll do this evening. I will specifically speak to things that might be important for our distance learning environment. So I am going to share my screen and start with our presentation for the evening. Okay, so this evening is what we call Back on Track, and we provide this meeting as a motivation twice a year, right at the end of first quarter and at the end of third quarter, to help give parents and students some perspective on what they can do to increase their grades. So this evening, you might ask, why am I here, right? We're going to talk about graduation requirements, A through G requirements and their importance. We'll talk a little about college and career information, study tips. We'll talk about tutoring and what our options are given our situation, and then we'll take some questions. So an excuse for some of the formatting. I see that I didn't fix everything. So first of all, the why. Why are you here? So we invited students and their parents and guardians who have earned at least one F during first quarter, because even one F can jeopardize you and your on-time graduation. It could determine your placement at Hare, or failing to meet A through G requirements. And we're going to talk about those. This meeting really is to prevent failure. So you received a report card recently, or you're able to access it on Aries. Those are not final grades, right? And so I want to just really emphasize that those are not final grades. And because of that, there is time. We don't issue final grades until the end of the semester. So I put here, what are the top 5 reasons that students fail? The number one reasons why students fail, the number one reason why students fail is poor attendance. So students, if you're sitting there and with your parent or guardian and you have not been logging into class, or you've been leaving class early, that's going to be the number one reason, right? In general. Now, we're in distance learning. So, maybe you still need some time to adjust to distance learning, to accessing classes on Zoom, right? But showing up is really the number one reason that students fail. Not completing work and turning in homework. So oftentimes students either won't do it, but many times students actually do the homework and don't turn it in. While we have been on 100% distance learning, what I've discovered from speaking with students and teachers mostly is that there is a trick. Students will submit an assignment without having completed it. So when you look on Aries parents, it might say 0 missing assignments and you think everything is okay. But teachers know whether you actually did that assignment or not. And that, for some reason, students sometimes have a difficult time turning in for fear that it's wrong. They're embarrassed, but students, it's really important that you turn that work in, because that really is how teachers understand whether you understand the information or not. The third thing I want to talk about is no study schedule, and that might be really kind of hectic right now in distance learning. Generally speaking, students should study between an hour and 2 hours, depending on what grade you're in. In this group, we have freshmen through juniors. Really, freshmen, you should be studying about an hour, right? And upperclassmen beginning 11th grade, probably, 2 hours maybe. If you have AP classes, more difficult classes, that might adjust, but just in general. But there's no scheduled study time. So I'll study only when I have a test, or I'll study, only when I have an assignment to do. So study time is really about every day reviewing all your work. In our current situation, there's not a lot of homework, right? So sometimes students equate studying with doing homework. Studying is really just going over your notes and going over the information, making sure you understand what you learned in the morning. Our Argo academic time is really taking that time. So if you're going to Argo academics, you're probably getting that time. But a lot of students, and certainly students that are failing classes, are probably not accessing that Argo academics, which we'll talk about a little bit later. Students are afraid to ask questions, strangely enough, right? They sit in class for 80 minutes. They don't understand what's going on. They don't chat in the chat box. They don't, unmute themselves and ask a question. They don't stay after class, right, to ask those questions. So it's really important when you are having difficulty to ask for help. Teachers are here to help you. Along with teachers, you can email your counselors or email your assistant principal. Our whole function here is to help you. So if you're not asking for help, it's like going to a restaurant, sitting down for a nice meal. I think we can all remember what that feels like. Sitting down for a nice meal and then not ordering anything, right? If you go to a restaurant to eat, you're going to order food. If you go to class, you need to ask for support and help along the way. And finally, really, the biggest concern that we have right now is that distance learning is difficult, right? It's different, and it's even different than we had distance learning in the spring, and it's difficult. But here's the deal: when something is difficult, we have to work harder. We can't work at it less. We have to work at it more. Distance learning in virtual context is legitimate and good and productive and can be just as beneficial if you put the time and effort into it. Why is this all important? Well, even though we're on distance learning, even though we're in the middle of a pandemic, we need students to move through their coursework through mastery so that they can graduate. It's really, really important that you don't fall behind. And we know that there's going to be some gaps because things, especially in the spring, were different. But it's important to remember that to graduate, you need 4 years of English, 3 years of math, you need 2 years of science. It's a year of physical science and life science. Life science, we actually have a class entitled Life Science, but there's physics also. Life science is biology. So if you're a freshman, you're in biology, and your sophomore year, you might be in chemistry. Juniors will take physical science, the physical science class, but chemistry, physics, those are also physical science classes. Social science, you need 3 years. So those are our history classes. PE, you need 2 years of PE. And yes, we have PE even in distance learning. You need 1 semester of health, and you need 13 elective courses, right, to total up to 220 credits. So it is very, very important that you not fall behind while on distance learning or in any point, right? Because every one of these classes that are required, if you fail, you have to repeat it, right? Freshmen, you have a lot of time to repeat it, right? So we have summer school and credit recovery. You have, 3 years of that after this. Juniors, this is it. Next year, you don't have any of those options. So it becomes really important for you to pass all your classes. On this side, I just like to show the A through G. A through G requirements are those courses that the California colleges and universities require in order to apply. It is our intention at Garden Grove High School that every student have the opportunity to apply to a California university. And so I put these side by side so you can see, like, the A through G requirements for California University is 4 years of English. Well, it's the same as our graduation requirements. 3 years of math is the minimum. That's the same as our graduation, although they recommend a 4th year of math. Science, they require 2 years, but 3 years are recommended, right? They require 1 year of physical and 1 year of life. So those are the same. So if you just take the classes that we give you, you're in pretty good, a good pathway to be eligible to apply. They also require 2 years of social science, which are history classes, right? We require 3 years. California universities only require 2. This lore is language other than English. They require 2 years. So this is now the first difference in the A through G requirements and our graduation requirements. At Garden Grove, we offer Spanish, Vietnamese, and Latin. Those can all fulfill that course requirement. So many of you are automatically put into either Spanish or Vietnamese, depending on your choice. And this is the reason why. There's also 1 year of a visual or performing arts. So that's choir, band, drama. We have a film class. Those all fulfill that requirement. And then this college elective is 1 year. So it's 1 year extra than the requirement. So if you were to take 4 years of math, that would fulfill that 1 year. So with just a little bit of tweaking, we are able to provide students the opportunity to apply to college and university. So with these 13 courses of electives, right, we put students in Spanish or Vietnamese or Latin, right? That fulfills this requirement here. And then you have your graduation requirement. The college elective course, we'll put you in a 4th year of math, a 3rd year of a language, a 3rd year of social science, right, which is our requirement is 3 years, and you'll get this 1 year. So we are trying to give students all of the opportunities to be successful in high school, because that will give them opportunities after they graduate as well. So this meeting becomes real important because you need to understand where you are in relationship to being on track towards graduation. Now, obviously, freshmen, technically, you have no credits right now. I mean, that's just the reality. No credits because we haven't had a grading period yet. But if you fail, that will put you behind, right? So your goal is to be on track, which means that you're going to earn 30 credits by January 23, 2021, right? That's your goal. That means you've passed all 6 of your classes. And we have 8 weeks until any final grading happens. Sophomores right now should be at 60 credits, right? At the end of their freshman year, with 160 credits remaining. So if you've already, fallen 5 or 10 credits behind, and you're right now failing another 5 or 10 credits, which is 1 or 2 classes, now you're looking at being maybe almost a semester behind, right? To be on track as a junior, you need 120 credits, right? That's the goal. Now for you, and then freshmen, you listen, but I want you to ignore also, because I don't want you to be banking on opportunities. So juniors have an opportunity to take an Apex class, which is an online class. Is what you need, is another online class. And then we have summer school that you can anticipate making up those courses. Remember what I said, those core classes, English, math, science, history, those must be made up because those are requirements. Juniors, you should have 120 credits. And you in the same, if you failed 1 or 2 classes in your first couple of years, and maybe you've taken a credit recovery course or gone to summer school already. But we need you to be on track at 120 credits because as a senior, you need 160 credits in order to be on track. Now, at your junior year, if you're behind a semester, then we talk about the option of hair, right? And so at the beginning of your junior year, or beginning of your junior year, we'll start talking, but at the end, we will talk to you about going to hair. But sophomores, at the end of this year, if you're really that far behind, we'll also talk to you about hair. That is our continuation school. You have a chance to redo all of your courses that you failed and take your current courses. We don't want you to go there. That's plan B. Plan B is to be on track towards graduation at Garden Grove High School. So the consequences of failing then become that you need to repeat your courses, right? If you fail English 1, you have to take it again because English 1 is a required course for graduation. That goes with your science classes, your math classes, falling behind in credits and skills. So, right, and I underline credits and skills because they are related. Because when you fail a class, you don't get your credits, but you also don't get that learning. In particular, in math, in algebra, everything builds on each other. In your language classes, everything builds. Your vocabulary and your understanding of grammar, it builds. So in order to pass your classes and get your credits, you need to acquire skills. And when you're failing, you're falling behind. You're jeopardizing graduating on time. And here's, the reality is that you have 4 years to graduate. You have a guarantee of 4 years in high school. What you do with those 4 years, that is your choice, right? And if we get to the end of 4 years and you have 215 credits, then you will not graduate on time and you won't march with your class. You can take that class over the summer after the school year that year, but you won't participate in the graduation ceremony. And so we don't want you to jeopardize your graduation. You also jeopardize not being eligible for university admissions. Those are those A through G courses, and you need a C or better in all of those courses in order to be eligible. So, the difference between being accepted or being able to even apply could be the difference in 1C and a D. We talked about hair, so that's a consequence of failing, that you have to be placed in an alternative high school setting. For us, it is hair. If you get severely behind, we have options of alternative settings outside of our district, but we don't want that, right? This is completely disconnected from us, which we don't want. And then you jeopardize just being left behind. We want to make sure that you, in each grade, that you keep up with your peers and keep up with the learning that you need. Because when you graduate and you receive that diploma, what we're saying to the world is that you are ready to go into college, to go into a career path. And if you don't receive that diploma, then what the world is going to ask you when you go and pursue job opportunities or when you go and pursue other educational opportunities, did you graduate? Did you graduate on time? And they're going to ask that could be something that could leave you behind in getting the job that you want, or taking the courses that you want in classes, the courses you want in college, or going to college at all. And just going on looking at college and career, I just want to, this is a study. I mean, we're in 2020 right now. This is a study that I've been referencing for several years, that in the year 2020, which started in January, 65% of all jobs will require post-secondary education. That is some college, some community college, a 4-year degree. And that's where we are right now. And so it's really important because the opportunities of education are that you have a better job. So for most jobs, securing a high school education will not be enough to qualify for employment, certainly not at the level that most of our students want to be at. I often ask students where they want to live, what kind of car they want to drive. And I say there's a correlation for them, not exactly all the time, but there is a correlation with the way that you are able to live, the house that you live in, the car that you drive, the clothes that you wear, and your education because of your employment opportunities. So you'll need a bachelor's degree or beyond, some college or an A degree, which is an associate of arts degree, or this always gets in my way, or something specific in your in a field of study, in a vocation. So you'll need some. So that's why we talk about college being important. So some study tips, right? And these are study tips that are just generally good study habits. Choose a quiet place with no distractions, no television, no cell phones, no PlayStation or Xbox, right? You need to carve some space in your day that is just dedicated to studying, reviewing your notes, making sure your assignments are completed, making sure you understand everything. That is even more important than it ever has been because you go to your classes every other day. And when we go into our in-person instruction, we're still going to have that type of schedule. So you have to really make sure that you understand if you go to class on Tuesday, excuse me, and you know that you're not going to go back to that class till Thursday, that you study on Tuesday night and you study on Wednesday night to make sure you're ready for Thursday morning. As far as possible, you want to try and study at the same time and in the same place. So you have some regular place, some regular time. And I know that is very different depending on where you're living and what your situation is. Many of us are all at home all the time anyway. When we're not in a pandemic, maybe someone is away from work and some people are, home and away. Now, most of the time, most of us are at home. But as far as you can, try to pick a time and a place to study every day. Review. I cannot express the importance of reviewing enough. You're going to review your notes for each class every night, which right now is a little easier because you have only 3 classes. So you're going to review those notes for those 3 classes before you go to bed or as part of your study routine. Make sure that you understand it. Maybe you're going to write a question if you don't understand it, especially again, if you're on Tuesday night when you're working a problem or trying to write a sentence or a paragraph for English or conjugating a verb in a language other than English, and you don't know how to do it, you want to write down that question because you're not going to be in that class until Thursday, right? You might be able to email the teacher or meet with the teacher after school via Zoom, but you want to make sure that you remember what your question is. Practice, right? Even if you are doing you think you know everything and you have everything down, do 2 math problems from the morning just to make sure. Make sure you understand the vocabulary that's due. Make sure you understand those terms in biology, those concepts. And you don't have to take more than about 15 minutes per subject to do this review and this practice. Like I said earlier, we don't want you studying more than an hour or 2 a day, right? And this is just for, your college prep courses. If you have AP classes, multiple AP classes, that's going to vary. If you have a particular class that's more difficult for you, that might be take more time. I like to share with students all the time that when I was in high school, math was a struggle for me. And when I took geometry, it was one of my biggest struggles. And I was in class for an hour every day. I went after school to get help from the teacher. And then I went to my friend's house and she tutored me for an hour every day. And then I went home and made sure that I understood all of those extra helps and supports so that I was ready for the next day. A little bit overdoing it, but that's what I needed for that class, right? And I still had other subjects. It kind of weighed itself out for the most part because that was my most difficult class that year. But you have to look at your schedule and find out what area you need more help in, and you have to kind of pursue that accordingly in terms of the time that you spend. If you find yourself studying for 2-3 hours and you still don't understand it, that's why I say 1 or 2 hours. If you get the 2 hours and you don't understand something, write your questions down and ask the teacher, because what we don't want you doing is practicing something that's wrong, because it's much more difficult to unlearn something than it is to learn something correctly the first time. But the first part of this, though, I have to keep emphasizing, is that you put the time and effort in it first. And make sure that you understand that homework and studying are not necessarily the same thing. You might have no homework at all. Maybe you completed everything in class. You still need to look over these notes. You still need to make sure that you understand it. Again, what's the caveat now that we're in distance learning and we're in the middle of a pandemic, is that you're going to your classes every other day. And so it's another day of not being in class and accessing the teacher and accessing the information. It's really, really important that you look over those notes every single day. Asking for help. I talked about this earlier. It's sometimes a very difficult thing to do. But we have in Zoom, you can use the private chat. You can stay in your Zoom after everyone leaves and ask a question. And then Argo Academics. And I know we only have another week of Argo Academics, but Argo Academics is a required part of the day. So school is from 8 o'clock to 2:43. In the morning, you go to 3 classes. You go to lunch at 12:30, and at 1:05, you start Argo Academics. And what that is that you go back to those classes in the morning for 30 minutes each. It gives you time to ask questions. You might have small groups. The teacher might just be available to pop in and get some extra help or support. The teacher may have given you an assignment to complete at that time, which would free you up to just look at your notes later on. But that is the best opportunity that we've had this quarter. This is going to change when we come back with our new schedule in person. You shouldn't have too much homework if you take advantage of your class time. Now that's going to be the same, I think. Teachers aren't going to pour in a lot of homework even when we return, because the schedule is so different. They're taking a much more hands-on, practical, let's do it in class approach so that you really understand it. But these are really important things. And so parents, if you are wondering how to support your students, you don't have to be a math whiz, you don't have to be a poet laureate or, some, award-winning physicist. You can just, did you chat with your teacher privately? Did you stay after class? Did you go to Argo Academics? Did you email your teacher, right? Many of your teachers have a Google number that you can call or text during school, after school time as well. So make sure that you're taking advantage of all of those opportunities. I talked about Argo Academics, right? It's a time to revisit morning material, one-on-one help, group help, complete assignments, drop in, ask questions, get clarification. So important. Now, as we look at going to in-person instruction, that's going to be a little different, because we're actually going to have some, okay, I'm back. Technical difficulty, my internet went out. That is why I make other people co-hosts when we do this. So I'm glad I wasn't gone for too long. What I was saying was that our Argo academic time, while it's going to change in our new schedule, there still will be time for teachers to meet with students after school via Zoom, at lunchtime, maybe not during lunchtime because students have to get home, but there'll be some time when you're not in class, when there's asynchronous time, we call it, when you're doing work at home, and we'll get that information to you, but you can always make those arrangements with your teacher. Let me go back to sharing. Can everybody see that okay? Or is that still too small? Can you see it? Okay. So we have resources at Garden Grove High School that students you need to know, parents you need to know what these resources are. Yes, but a bit small. Okay, let me see if I can make it bigger. Okay, hopefully that's better. And I just want you to know that, we are really here to help and support you, right? You don't ever have to be afraid. I was in a meeting today with a student and I said, look, I don't want you to be mad if I don't understand it. We're not going to be mad. Your teachers aren't going to be mad. They're here to help you. We can set up parent-teacher conferences. You can set up individual with individual teachers or with all teachers. Your school counselor is here to help you. You can always contact your school counselor. Your assistant principals, we're here to help you. I meet with students and parents every day, right? One of the benefits of being in a pandemic and being on virtual learning is that it's really easy to connect. You don't have to leave home. You don't have to drive anywhere. It's right at your fingertips, and we can sit down and talk through whatever situation you might be having. So it's really important that you understand that we're here to help you. Now, this has been a difficult time. We have a couple of programs that we have, one of which is Project Kinship, which they specialize in restorative practices and mediations, but they really do. We have somebody that will check in on, they'll call or email, sometimes even stop by the house. Like, I know it's difficult to be separated from your friends and be separated from school, and it causes a lot of, anxiety and some, the blues or depression, or whatever you want to call it. So we have support and services. Excuse me, we have Aspire social work services. And if you're really having some more serious situations going on, that you can actually have some therapy, some social work therapy, counseling to get you through this difficult time. And I know we're going back into in-person learning after the Thanksgiving break, but I want you to understand that the thing that we miss about school, we're going to be able to see each other, but we're going to be there for a limited time in limited numbers. Like, you might not be in the same cohort as your best friend, and we can't gather in large groups. We're not going to be moving around in class. The teacher's going to be stationary. You're going to be stationary. It's going to look and feel different, right? And it's going to take some adjusting, but hopefully it'll make us all feel a little better to see each other. But I just want you to know that we have programs and services within our school support here with teachers, counselors, and assistant principals, but we also have Project Kinship and Aspire Social Services. So if you are wanting some of these services, if you think that you might be, parents, you can email us and let us know you're concerned about your students. Students, you can contact us and say, I'm just not feeling it, right? I need something extra. You can let us know as well. So just, I've mentioned our hybrid cohort schedule. But this is going to be another adjustment period. And so I just want to put this in there because I know sometimes the problem that you might be having is there's a lot of change, right? We started distance learning. We announced that we're going to go to in-person. Then we got an announcement that we weren't going, and now we're announcing that we're going back. And all this movement and change takes its toll. So when we go there, it's going to be important that you understand the schedule. So I think Mr. Nurk sent something out earlier this week. Make sure that you look at it, listen to the video, watch the video, because it's going to be really important to go to all your live classes, right? If you're only going to get in those classes twice a week, if you miss one, you've missed half the time. And what's that number one reason why students fail? It's attendance. It's going to be really important. Now, we don't want you coming to school if you're sick, right? All those things still matter a lot, but it's really important that as long as you're well, that you get to class, those live classes, and not miss. That you need to get there on time those days. It's really important because every minute is going to count. Now, you're also going to have times when you have to log in every day. So you're going to be in class in the morning, you're going to have to go and do something. You might need to log in the afternoon. Make sure that you follow your teacher's instructions, right? There is this change that is coming in the way that you learn and the way that we teach. And this is the way it's going to be for the rest of the year. So make sure that you are really dedicated to making all of those appointments in person and via Zoom every time, because this is where we are. And we can talk about how we don't like it and it's difficult and it's frustrating and it's all these things, but it is where we are in order for us to be safe. And if we just kind of accept it, hold on to it, it can be a very, very productive time. So that's going forward as we go back to in person. So just in review, our basic keys to academic success is coming to school every day on time, if that means in person or logging in. Do what the teacher requires you to do in class. Make sure you participate and that you're engaged. Completing all your assignments and turning them in. Become an example of Argos, right? Argos are our PBIS kind of model, what we want all students to be. We want you to be advocates. Advocate for yourself. I don't understand something. I need something more. I'm the best at this already. I can help somebody else. We want you to be responsible. So take it seriously. Know the schedule that you're going to be required to abide by. Know the parameters of what you're allowed to do, what you're not allowed to do. Take full responsibility, right? Be goal-oriented. We talked about, at the beginning, I talked about high school graduation requirements, A through G requirements for college applications. Think about what it is that you want to do, what you want your life to be like when you leave high school. Help that motivate you. I think one of the biggest things that is difficult right now is motivation, right? It's hard to be motivated when you're sitting in your bedroom. I know it looks like I'm in my office at school, but I'm not. That's a virtual background, right? Behind me is just a green screen, and I'm sitting in my bedroom. And I get that it's difficult to get motivated. One of the things that I do is I put a virtual background to make me feel like I'm at school. So when I look at my screen, I see myself in my office at school. Little things like that we need to make sure that we do. Have some real goals. Taking ownership of your actions. It's really easy right now to say, well, it's a pandemic and distance learning is terrible, right? But that's not taking responsibility of your actions. You still have homework to do. You still have classes to attend. You still have reading to do. You still have all those same things. Yes. Is it more difficult? Yeah. But when things are more difficult, you can work extra hard, extra diligently, right? And finally, Argos have self-worth. Like, you're worth all of this. You're worth the struggle. You're worth the effort. You're worth the time that the teachers are taking, that the time that you need to put into it, right? And so don't forget that. Be an example, a living, breathing example of Argos. Keep your eyes on the prize, which in high school is graduation. Graduation means that you're ready for college and or career. Everything that you're learning is leading up to that. So keep your eyes on that prize. Juniors, you are right there. Next year at this time, you will be applying to college. You'll be thinking about those jobs, right? And freshmen, the time goes by that fast. So make sure that you keep focused. And, attending Argo Academics for the rest of this week. But whatever we put in place, right, it's probably going to be more a Zoom kind of Argo Academics after school. Make sure if you need help that you're getting that help and you're being diligent. Now, I've thrown a lot of information at you. Now is the time for you to ask any questions that you might have about supporting students, about what are maybe some specific questions about distance learning, how to access it with more ease. And so I'll let you, you can put it in the chat, or you can just unmute yourself and ask away. If you don't have any questions, that's fine. You know, that is the presentation. I just want to encourage you to, you know, keep working hard. So we do have a couple of questions coming up. Do you have offer tutoring? So right now, as we're just getting our new schedule, like our Argo academic time has been our tutoring. We are just finalizing our schedule for our hybrid schedule, but we will have some supports and help for tutoring. Right now, I would say focus on letting the teacher know, and the teacher will make some time to tutor after school, or maybe even during class when possible. Regarding the hybrid schedule, will parents be made aware which teachers will be streaming? Yes, and and I think by streaming, you mean streaming like in the morning with the other students that are in person. I think what will happen is that on that first day of school, or maybe next week, as we look at our vacation, the individual teachers will let their classes know. I think many of our AP classes teachers are going to stream, but there will be, you know, there will be for students who are distance learning, you know, they will have access face-to-face via Zoom with teachers, but they will be able to decide if they'll stream at the same time that students are in class in front of them. What can we do if the teacher doesn't allow makeup work? That's a difficult one, because teachers have the autonomy to accept or not accept late work. And so first, I would say for students, make sure that you get your work in on time. Most teachers, even if they don't allow makeup work, if you're having difficulty with something and you need extra help, or you need some more time, if they know ahead of time, they're pretty flexible. I think teachers get frustrated when students just don't turn any work in, and then they say, oh, can I turn in my 10 assignments late? And I think that's where the frustration is. But we can certainly set up a meeting. You can set up a meeting with the AP. We can talk. You can email the AP. We can talk to the teacher and find out ways of being able to make up that work. And if not, then what is necessary going forward so that your student can pass the class and get the skills needed to be successful. Excuse me. I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to be here and help any way I can. There's a question: if you stay on distance learning, will you still be a part of Garden Grove High School? Yes. The distance learning plan in our schedule is Garden Grove High School. And so those students that remain in distance learning will be Garden Grove High School students. So don't confuse it with the Virtual Learning Academy, which is a different school, which is all virtual. That would be a different school, but in our distance learning plan at Garden Grove High School, that is Garden Grove High School. Is Argo required to attend every day or just when needed for help? So it's Argo Academics. Technically, it's been required every day, but teachers have used it for students that need extra. So many teachers will say, look, I'll be in that Zoom or that Google Meet from 1 to 1:30. Drop in if you need help. If you don't finish that assignment, sometimes they'll assign, hey, you need to come see me at 1 o'clock. But it is required, and it's in attendance is marked as part of the engagement. So if a teacher requires you to be there for something specific or to turn something in, then that might look in attendance as not being engaged if you don't go. All of this has been kind of being worked out as we go a little bit. So there has been no penalty if you haven't gone. But what I have tried to do is tell students and parents that is the vehicle that we need to use. But when we go into hybrid, that changes because teachers are going to be teaching distance learning in the afternoon. So that was that Argo time. So we're having to come up with something a little different. Is there any way you can email? Oh, it's a private message. You know, if you can email me, there's a question about if you know, my email, and I guess I could put it in the chat. It's easier just to email me and then I can respond to it. Can students still make up all missing assignments? If they're failing now, what's the best way to get their grades up? So it depends on the teacher. If the teacher allows late work, and many teachers do, you can still turn it in. But because we're only halfway through the semester, there's still plenty of time. So if a teacher doesn't allow makeup work, we're in a different grading period right now in Q2. And so all the things that we talked about, making sure that you go to class every time, stay the whole time, turn in your homework, engage in the activities that are planned by the teacher. Those are all really very important. And if you are not understanding, let's set up some parent conferences with the teachers, set up individual meetings with the teachers. Because if you're failing because you don't understand something, then the teacher really needs to know, right? Because the teacher is the expert, and then we can get you into some, you know, some help and support. So I hope that answers that question. It's really about effort also. And I know, like I'll say, it's really difficult right now to be motivated, but you know, parents, keep reminding your kids that, you know, it's important. Graduation is important. Learning is important. And kind of do what you can to motivate them, whether it's a candy bar or a big hug. I love hugs, right? And so I know this time when we're not supposed to hug people outside of our home, like my son has an apartment in LA, and I haven't hugged him since March. And so it's one of the most difficult things I've had to deal with during this pandemic. So it could be just as simple as a hug to motivate somebody. Tell your kids that you love them. Like, I think if we learn anything from this pandemic is the frailty of life and how easily something so simple, something microscopic can change us. And I think that if you have that opportunity to remind your sons and daughters how much you love them and how important this is, that goes a long way. But we just have to support one another. But students, you have got to get in there. You've got to get in those books. You've got to study. You've got to turn your work in. That we can't do for you, right? Teachers are going to teach, right? Parents are going to love you, and they're going to push you, and they're going to nag you to get stuff done. But you know, you're 14, 15, 16, 17 years old. You're old enough to say, you know what? I don't like this subject. It's not interesting to me, but it's important for me to get it done. And think about it. Like, if, let's just say that math is your work, you hate math. If you fail, you have to take it again. If you hate something, do it once and get it over with. Like, if you've passed Algebra 1, you never have to take Algebra 1 again. I had a student some years ago, that literally had the equivalent of 6 years of high school because he failed, went to credit recovery, went to summer school. He did that for 3 years. And I ask him all the time, what you have the ability, right? What's the difference? He goes, well, once I fail, I try harder. Try harder the first time. And ask questions. Ask questions so we can get you some help. Is soccer practice going to start? I think you emailed me that, and I looked. It was supposed to have started, but I think there was a delay. But soccer practice should have started based on the original calendar, and I didn't ask specifically. I apologize. Some teachers are missing kids so early from virtual learning. It would be nice if they required the kids to be on camera during coursework instead of dismissing the class early. Yeah, there's a question about students being dismissed early. I mean, technically, students are supposed to be in class with their camera on for full attendance. Some teachers have given students the opportunity to turn their cameras off because of Wi-Fi issues, or there's a number of reasons why, but they really should be holding class the whole time. I substitute for several days, and I let students go about 10 minutes early, 5 minutes early when they were done with their work. So hopefully I'm not too guilty of that and some of those crazy days. But I will definitely, we tell teachers, even in person, right, virtual, students need to be in class the whole time. When we're in person, it's going to be even more important because we're going to have specific release times. But students should be in class the whole time with their cameras on. If a teacher doesn't respond to an email, then you can email the assistant principal. I get emails like that. Teacher hasn't responded. Sometimes students have let teachers know in the chat, hey, my mom emailed you. But certainly you can email the AP and we will let the teacher know that they need to get back to you, because they should be getting back to you within 24 hours. For language class, can I change the class after the first semester? Probably not. Right, you have to talk to your counselor. So if there's an issue with a class, there's a question about a language class, contact your counselor. Generally, we're not going to move a student in the middle of a language because you really need 2 years. And so depending on what year you're in, we have to make sure you get 2 years of the same language to be eligible for college applications. So we'd have to look at your specific situation. I think that, we had a student that signed up for Latin because they thought it would be fun, and it didn't work, and we let them drop. They weren't a transfer student, and we knew that sophomore and junior year they could take Spanish and be fine. So did I miss any questions in the chat? Any other questions? This is not the only time that you can ask. I didn't say your name. You called yourself out. I didn't even know that was you. You're very welcome. If there's no other questions, then feel free, to log off. But please don't feel like because this particular meeting is over that you can't contact us. Students, I talk to your teachers, but talk to parents. Call us, email us, the administrators, so that we can help you through. These are very challenging times, and we are in it all together. All right. So I'll stay on until there are no more questions, but feel free to leave. Thank you so much for coming and spending an hour of your evening. Thank you. You're very welcome. Thank you. Thank you. So it's so nice to see everybody, even though we can't, it's only, 2 dimensions, but it's really nice to see everybody.